Building a restorative ecosystem. After someone survives a crime, they carry that trauma with them. The weight of that trauma can be a heavy burden. The survivor will also have to deal with things like court hearings, medical issues, bills, school, and safe housing. The list goes on. In a restorative ecosystem, the systems a survivor crosses paths with support their recovery so that they don't have to carry that burden alone. Imagine how different the world would look if hospitals, courts, and schools all supported survivors. We can build a world like this by investing in services that prevent trauma and support trauma survivors. We need to make sure that service providers have the tools to do both. For example, trauma-informed training would be a standard part of the job. Let's start with schools. In a restorative ecosystem, educators learn to spot trauma symptoms in their students. Schools wouldn't punish students who show trauma symptoms like acting out, missing class, and struggling at school. Instead, they'd respond with concern and compassion. This way, students get the resources and accommodations to meet their needs. Now let's talk about healthcare. Childhood trauma can dramatically increase people's risk of 7 out of the 10 leading causes of death in the United States. This includes high blood pressure, heart disease, and cancer. So healthcare providers should take trauma history and mental health into account. But mental health care is still separate from general health care and often hard to access. In a restorative ecosystem, mental and physical health care are integrated. Healthcare providers work together with mental health care providers to holistically support patients. And trauma screenings and mental health check-ins are a standard part of doctors and hospital visits. Healthcare providers always speak compassionately and get consent before touching their patients. Therapists are on staff at every hospital and doctor's office and available to patients. Last, we have the justice system. A restorative legal environment holds perpetrators accountable and supports the victims and communities impacted. All survivors would have access to attorneys so that their voice is listened to in the legal process. Survivors have a victim advocate to accompany them in court. They get help with their safety planning and recouping any costs from the crime. Courts provide free therapy and social work to both the victims and the perpetrators, as well as their families. A restorative ecosystem heals the root causes of crime: trauma, poverty, and power imbalance. Crime is less likely to occur when we build strong foundations for communities by investing in social resources. We prioritize funding public child care, education, healthcare, and housing. These are just a few of the ways that we can create an ecosystem that supports trauma survivors. Survivors should never feel isolated in their recovery process. In a restorative ecosystem, survivors will have a community behind them. Brought to you by Network for Victim Recovery of DC. Written and produced by Adeline Murphy.